Right-wing demonstrators in Florida have been given a pass after breaking the state's new anti-protest laws during the demonstrations that have been against Cuban government last week in Florida. It was a big mess in Florida. Florida officials are now facing criticism for applying a double standard to protesters across the state. Brigida Santos joins me now to talk about this story. Brigida, first of all, as we watch this story develop, I'm wondering, did police in Miami file charges against anti-Cuban protesters last week? Were there actually charges filed?
No, last week, Florida police declined to charge hundreds of protesters who shut down the Palmetto Expressway for 8 hours in Miami-Dade County in violation of Florida's new anti-protest bill. Governor Ron DeSantis enacted Florida's harsh new law in April in response to last year's Black Lives Matter protests. The law makes it a felony for protesters to block highways, and it gives full immunity to people who drive through protesters. But in response to the anti-Cuban government protests last week, DeSantis tweeted that Florida supports the people of Cuba as they take to the streets and the rights of nonviolent Cuban American protesters. No arrests were made despite law violations. Critics immediately pointed out the difference in how Florida treats right-wing protesters versus other protesters who stand up against oppression.
Yeah, I'm looking at this, and I'm telling you, it's kind of a 50-50 shot whether this stands or not, because police powers, as we talked about on this show, are so strong. Police powers are incredibly strong. You can talk about where protests are going to be. You can talk about how long they should take place. There's all types of limitations you can put on this. So I'm not sure that this is a given that the Supreme Court's going to say, just strike this down. How are civil rights groups responding to Florida's anti-riot bill?
Yeah, a coalition of civil rights groups, including the ACLU, NAACP, and Community Justice Project, have filed a motion in a federal court in Florida to block the state's new anti-protest law. In a statement, the coalition says the law risks criminalizing peaceful protest, shields those who injure or kill protesters from civil penalties, discourages people from protesting, and infringes on First Amendment rights. And back in May, that same group also sued DeSantis directly and other state officials over House Bill 1.
Yeah, I'm not sure that these governors really care how this lands, whether the Supreme Court of their state takes it away, knocks it down. I think what it is, it's a factor that they're throwing red meat out to people who are kind of tired of protests. They went through an entire summer of it, almost entire year of it, maybe 2 years if you look back. And I think this is kind of the conservative governor's way of throwing out some red meat, knowing that it may not stick. How many other states have passed similar laws that undermine the First Amendment, as they put it?
Since 2017, over 35 states have passed anti-protest laws that increase fees and jail time for those convicted of damaging infrastructure and assisting protesters, even if they themselves don't participate in any civil disobedience. The laws significantly restrain First Amendment rights to freely assemble and, of course, to free speech. The new laws have been heavily backed by police unions and corporations. Many of the legislators who sponsor new anti-protest laws also back new voter suppression laws. Corporate donors to these lawmakers include companies like AT&T, Philip Morris, and R.J. Reynolds, to name a few.
Yeah, I'm not, sometimes you look at legislation, you say this is never going to live. If this one fails, it's going to fail on the way that it's written. There's some real illusory elements to it. There's some parts that if you were to look at, you really don't understand what the law is, and there's some due process kind of arguments there. But you're going to see some states where the state Supreme Court says, yeah, it's okay, and we'll see what SCOTUS does with it in the long run. Thank you for joining me, okay?